Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. If you enjoy these videos, do me a favor and subscribe to our YouTube channel right here at Watchbox Reviews. I would appreciate it, and I promise to update daily. If you like this watch, you can see it and purchase it on our website, thewatchbox.com. Today we discuss a blast from the past released in 2013 to commemorate both 100 years of Seiko watchmaking and the great 1967 44GS reference. This is the 44GS reissue, a tribute known as SBGW047. 700 pieces in stainless steel. It pays tribute to Seiko's history as a watchmaker, yes, but also to the seminal model that created the modern Seiko, or I should say Grand Seiko, polyhedron design language. If you've ever wondered where those shapely faceted case forms come from, the root was that 44GS of 1967. And this watch teaches the Swiss how a tribute watch should be done. It's almost identical in size and details to that original. 37.9 millimeters across the round of the case. Likewise, no date on its dial, staying true to the source material. The watch is also narrow between the lugs at 18 millimeters. That is a very vintage spacing, and it's slim. The timepiece only 12 millimeters thick with a stepped case flank that plays nicely with a dress cuff or a tight sleeve. Lug to lug, once again, vintage proportions and dimensions reign, as it's only 43.5 millimeters lug to lug, and I can endorse this watch in good conscience for a wrist as small as 13 centimeters in circumference. You'll also note the timepiece with a strap worthy of the occasion, a matte black alligator leather, large rectangular scale, mildly bolstered down its center with a folded edge and a monotone stitch. Note how closely drilled the lugs are to the case, creating a highly integrated look, as there's really no gap between the strap and the case, but there's also no constraint to the movement of the strap. It doesn't get pinned against the case. The buckle, being a vintage-inspired Seiko piece, you can see it has the imagery of the 1960s, but on the underside you'll note the channeling between the stanchions, so the strap sits between the edges of the buckle rather than stacking up on the wrist. A vintage piece with modern engineering know-how. Jumping back to the case, this is what Seiko, or I should say Grand Seiko, describes as the polyhedron. Many faceted forms, all of them Zaratsu black polished manually using hand pressure against a tin plate. It's very much like the poly noir or black polish you'll find on the screws and perhaps most esteemed and prominent surfaces of high-end Swiss watch movements, not cases, movements. This is movement-grade finishing on a case exterior, and all of those seams and creases and facets and features seeming almost more like a cut gem than something fashioned from metal. It is true to history, right down to the bezel being countersunk between the lugs. I adore this because it allows the lugs to be broad, shapely, and full of form, but it also allows the watch to remain relatively slim. Though it is vintage-inspired, it does have a sapphire crystal over its dial, which is inspired quite closely by the 1967 original. Many folks see the mandatory date as the bête noire of the tribute watch movement, whereas many of the originals featured no date. Most of the tribute watches feature dates for the sake of mainstream sales. This is an uncompromising model that features only high-end Seiko, or I should say Grand Seiko, diamond-cut, faceted, and hand-placed indices, the dial furniture, applique logos, indices, as well as faceted and polished hands represent the strongest element of Grand Seiko watches. As good as the cases are, the dials are that much better in the detailing. Very few companies would bother to facet hands, much less finish them manually. Seiko and Grand Seiko know what they're doing with this watch, and I should mention, I keep saying Seiko because at the time, it was not Grand Seiko that created this watch. It was a company then known as Dainai Sakosha, which today is the Seiko Instrument Incorporated Company. It is a broad, sprawling empire, that Seiko Epson Company conglomerate. Grand Seiko now part of it, and you can see no doubt as to the provenance on the case back. It is a Grand Seiko product. Water resistant in this case implies 30 meters water resistant, so it is not a sports watch in any sense. The movement inside, however, is long-legged. Caliber 9S64 manual wind with a 72-hour power reserve, 24 joules. It features hacking or stop seconds for precise setting. It does feature Grand Seiko's signature in-house Diashock shock protection, and for that matter, every part of the movement, right down to the oils used, created by the company whose name graces the dial. A wonderfully deluxe vintage tribute that feels as rich as a modern watch and as charming and romantic as a vintage watch. You can see this Grand Seiko 700-piece 2013 model year SBGW047 and make it yours on the watch box.